watch the ride.
Hey everybody, so I have a subject to talk about. Now, I'm going to be talking about this from the standpoint generally of being overconfident on a motorcycle, but actually a lot of this applies to life. Being overconfident is a really bad thing to do. There's nothing wrong with being confident, but true confidence with experience is the valuable thing. Overconfidence is just, it's a liability for something to go wrong. Now when you first start riding motorcycles, you may not feel very confident on them, and you know, as you're learning, but as you then start to learn and learn, you're going to notice you're going to gain a confidence, and when you get to the point that you can fully control the bike and you can do all the things you need to do to get around the road and everything seems generally fine, you know, you might go a bit quicker here and there, you start to get a confidence, and if that gets out of hand, it almost always ends with a crash. Now, as I say, there is nothing wrong with being confident as a rider. It's very beneficial to feel confident. If you're not confident, you're going to feel scared and you're going to worry about things more, and you're not going to basically input the controls to the bike in a sensible way. You're going to make jerk decisions like panic braking and things like that. As I say, that first overconfidence, if it does lead to a crash, trust me, you won't be feeling nearly as confident after that. You'll learn. I kind of did this with my first crash. I'd only been riding 2 months, although I have been riding bikes for years. You know, I knew how to control a bike. I thought I was all right, and I wasn't massively over cocky, but I obviously was more confident than I should have been. Basically, I went around a corner faster than I should have, and the back end of the bike slightly slid on a shiny patch of tarmac. Now, rather than accepting that as something that can happen and you continue riding smoothly, I panicked and I started braking. Now when you start braking, it stands the bike up and puts you in a straight line. Unfortunately, I ran out of road and ended up going through a fence. And that is the only crash that I've had to 100% rider error. I learned that I was not as good as I thought, and it's better to ride within your limits than push the limits. That's another thing, as new riders, you don't want to be pushing it too far, because when you first start learning to ride, you are riding in the high end of your abilities, you know, because this is new to you. When you're an experienced rider, what gives you the safety and the experience is a buffer zone of ability and confidence, but not overconfidence. Like, riding around on the road at your like 70-80% mark of your ability always leaves that 20% of, you know, if something goes wrong that you can get around it. But of course with that, you get people who are overconfident and think they're riding at like 50% and they're actually riding about 95% of their ability, and it takes a very small thing for them to go unstuck. And you'll see this, the most cocksure riders that you see are always the ones that crash. And it's normally their fault, and then they'll start trying to make all these reasons as to why it wasn't their fault, this happened, that happened, blah, 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 rather than just holding their hands up and going, I fucked up. Because overconfidence and kind of narcissism and stuff like that, they kind of go together quite well. You know, people like confident people. People do not like overconfident people. To the point that if you are very overconfident, people will go out of their way to try and let you prove yourself why you're not as good as you think you are. A good example of this would be going into your CBT saying, I know everything there is to know. I can ride a bike. I know how the roads work. Why do I need to learn this stuff? If you have that attitude with your instructors, I'm going to say 9 times out of 10, they're going to find this annoying and then let you yourself, as I say, prove why you're actually wrong about that. They'll catch you out. They'll ask you to do something you can't do, or they'll give you a question. They will. You know, it's better to be quiet, listen, and double down on knowledge. Even if you know it all, double down on it. It's never a bad thing to relearn information that may save your life. I mean, if I said to you, hey, you've been injured, do you want a first aider who takes their first aid course every couple of years just to keep on top of it all, even though they know how to do CPR and compression bandages and all that stuff? Would you rather have that person, or the person that did it 20 years ago, but I definitely know what I'm doing still? You know, on some videos, if I'm riding a little bit more spiritedly, people go, oh, you're slow, you know, I could get through there way quicker than that. Yes, you probably could. And yes, so could I probably. But could I do it as safely? That's the thing. huge part of how I decide how fast I'm going to go through a corner or how far I'm going to push it on this ride. Doesn't necessarily have a huge amount to do with my confidence or ability in my own riding. What it comes down to is how much I can see and how much traffic there is. I don't trust any cars, and if there's a lot of traffic around, it's a bad time to do things. People in cars are unpredictable. They do unpredictable, weird things for no apparent reason. They'll suddenly change lane for no apparent reason. And it doesn't matter how good of a rider that happens to, they're still going to come off. It's a car. There's nothing you can do about that. I've seen the opinion voiced before now that my way of thinking when riding, you know, to think about what could be ahead and riding well within your limits, because I'd rather ride slightly slower for the rest of my life than really quickly for the next 10 minutes and then no life. Some people have tried to criticise me on that, and fine, if you want to criticise me on that, I'm fine with it. I'm absolutely fine with it. The older I get, the more I value experienced opinions. I will quietly sit and listen to anyone who knows what they're talking about. I will just sit quietly and listen to them, and that's about anything. You know, because I'm massively interested in all sorts of aspects of life, whether it be an engineer or anything. If someone has experience in something and they're imparting that knowledge and experience, I will quietly sit and listen and absorb it. Even if I disagree with some parts of it, I'll just take it on board as another way of that other people do things. But this is kind of a futile video in the sense that anyone's overconfident is not going to question that and change their actions by anything that I've said. The only way I can see this having a benefit is to teach future riders and riders who are gaining experience to be aware that this confidence and this possible overconfidence will come, and just to keep that in check. This is similar to why I have the opinion that 1000cc bikes are completely useless on the UK roads, because if you truly are riding a 1000cc bike to its fullest abilities on the road, you're a bit of a nugget. That shit should stay on the track. Now, if you're riding, say, a 400 or even a 600 to its maximum abilities on the road, well, you're still pushing it, but it's not quite as bad. That's why I love 125s. You can ride 125s to their limits and still be legal. That's where the fun comes in it for me with 125. That's why on a 125 you'll see me, I won't say pushing it more, but I kind of am pushing more what I expect from the tyres and stuff like that. I reckon the most common crash situation that occurs due to overconfidence is probably running off in a corner. You know, you go flying into a corner, you think you can get around it, and you can't. And you end up somewhere over there in the trees. Somewhere in that corner, on the balance beam between what they think they can do and what they actually can do, tips very strongly in what they think they can do, and that's when they end up going off. This is a very difficult thing to try and articulate, but I hope I've managed to do it. As I say, confidence is a great asset. It's a real good thing to be confident in what you do. However, being overconfident is a liability for something to go wrong. And then because you're overconfident, trust me, everyone is going to laugh their asses off just because you did. There has been some examples of that in the past where people have voiced how good they are at something and then do something very stupid and then very quickly get reminded about how they're not very good at what they do. You're alright? Of course I am.
You're giant.
I'm not that giant. It's I'm trying to remember your last Tate? Because there's your bike. I've seen so many pictures of this thing. It's cool. I like it because it's
50, but it's
what year is it?
98.
98.
They started making it in 83.
Yeah, as I say, it looks like the old style of the 80s, isn't it? Hang on, who's doing this? Bye everyone. This channel is made possible by the support of the audience. Please check out the links in the description and all the different ways you can help support the channel. Any help is greatly appreciated.